What's good, everybody? In this video, we're talking about radical equations and how to solve them. This video is going to be a little bit different than the others on this topic because I'm going to break down the overall goal for radical equations and the steps necessary to solve. So, number one, when we're solving these type of equations, guys, we have to get the radical absolutely by itself on one side of the equation and the constant on the opposite side of the equal sign. So as a result, we're going to get rid of this fraction and we're going to move 7 to the other side. So my first step is to subtract 7. At this step, I'm going to have 4 is equal to radical 8h all over 3. Now in this step, the radical is still not by itself, right? It's being divided by another number. So to get rid of it, we're going to multiply by that denominator. Go on the other side, we're going to repeat the step. Now we have 12 is equal to radical 8h. So after we get the radical by itself, right, that's the first thing. And let's think of the word isolate. You want to isolate the radical. Now we need to get rid of it. And before we get into that, guys, just remember to get rid of a radical, you gotta take it to the same power. So because this is a square root, we're gonna take this to the second power, and we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Now, before I continue this problem, I really want to explain this step because everybody thinks that it's always going to be an exponent of 2, and that is not the case. Let's say this was 12 is equal to the cube root of 8h. Now, when we go to get rid of this radical, instead of taking it to the second power, we would take it to its root, which would be 3. So this is an important step that you guys need to understand when we talk about getting rid of the radical. And this is why we use the exponent 2, because that is the root when we do not see a number. So going back to our original problem, once we now square both sides, my radical is going to be gone on this side. And now we're here, 12 squared is 144. Now, we know to solve, we're just going to divide by 8. And 144 divided by 8, if I'm not mistaken, is going to give us an answer of 18. So when we're talking about solving radical equations, guys, this is how we would do it. Now, in our second and final example for the day, let's go through those same steps. So we identify our radical, right? We have x minus 4 under it. And just because there's an operation such as subtraction, that does not change the problem. So the first thing we want to do is get the radical by itself. So I see that we're multiplying it by 2 and we're subtracting 11. So what we're going to do is add 11 on both sides. At this step, this is what I'm going to have now. Right? So after we added 11 on both sides, rewrote our problem, the radical still is not by itself. So now what I'm going to do is divide by 2 on both sides. So I'll have radical x minus 4 is now equal to 4. So now that the radical is by itself, that's the first step. We got it by itself by isolating it. Now we need to make sure that we get rid of the radical. So now we're going to take this to the second power because that is its root. So we take this to the second power, and what we do on one side, we do to the other. So we're going to have x minus 4 is now equal to 16. And as a result, we could get x by itself by adding 4 to both sides. So our final answer would be x is equal to 20. So when we talk about solving radical equations, guys, there are 3 key steps. Number 1, we want to get the radical by itself in the equation, isolated. 2, we want to get rid of that radical. And then 3, after the radical is gone, we're going to solve like a regular equation. Now, in my next upcoming videos, what we're going to do is explain whether the solution to the radical equation is the correct one or whether it's an extraneous solution, which just means an extra solution. But we really hope you found this quick review helpful on solving radical equations. Thank you guys so much for joining us today with Algebra on Mr. Peters. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments for future videos you guys would like to see on our channel, or if you just had questions on today's video. Thank you guys.